Children harmed by disputes arising out of parental breakup can be measured in hundreds of thousands per annum. It is the single area of greatest and most prolonged conflict on parental breakup. It is in this area that children suffer most. It is in this area that so much more work and resources and imaginative new thinking is desperately needed. Contact disputes take up more court and judge time and more professional time than any other in the family court system, and it is getting worse and worse. I'm going to raise the issues which I'm touching upon in an interrogative form. Firstly, because judges undeniably have views on policies. We don't have expressing strong views. The next time I have someone in my court and I'm dealing with the issue, I should tell them I can't hear the case. Secondly, because I don't generally know the answers. And thirdly, in the hope that it stimulates later discussion. So I'm not going to attempt to provide final answers to the questions which I pose. I do not know or presume to know the right answers, if there are any. However, I shall be extremely interested to hear the views from other branches of the system and other organisations that are represented here today. So here are the questions. There is an unspoken or sometimes spoken assumption that the most important factor when arranging time sharing between separating parents is that it should be achieved consensually. In other words, by agreement and at all costs and on whatever terms. Question 1, is that assumption without more a proper one? It's driven by the belief that, quote, avoiding the conflict factor trumps all other factors. A recent document put out by local courts around the country with the blessing of the judiciary urges parents involved in contact applications to do all they can to agree the arrangements. And I'm not for a second detracting from that as an aspiration, but I worry about its simple application in every case for the following reasons. Normally, when parents separate, they want to keep conflict to a minimum, quite understandably. That is an admirable, but frequently not achievable aim. One, other, or both parties often feel either guilty or betrayed, or both. And both often feel that they have let each other and the children down. To that end, when they are considering the arrangements for the children, the most important area on that, at the time of their separation, do they always have the children's real, as opposed to supposed, best interests at the centre of the process and of their thinking? Driven by the understandable motive to ameliorate hurt, reduce argument, and smooth the passage of separation, it is assumed that the best arrangement for children is that they spend as much time as possible with each parent. That leads inexorably and often to arrangements whereby children divide their time equally, or more or less equally, between the two new households. Question, are such arrangements truly child-centred? Or are they driven more by the desire of the adults to ensure each exits the relationship with half of everything, money, possessions, and the children's time? That, of course, keeps the record straight, keeps it totally straight, and it rewards them both equally, and so it seems fair to the grown-ups. It may also be seen by the children as, in a simple way, fair between their parents, especially if they have an appreciation of what is going on in their parents' relationship. But is it fair to them in the sense of them, in the sense of it being best for them and their development? Many fathers' groups regard this as their primary goal. Last Christmas, as previously, most of the family judges in the country, I suspect, had a Christmas card from one of the lesser-known fathers' groups. We normally do get Christmas cards around Christmas and Father's Day. We get cards. It contained its usual barbed remarks, but also this message, quote, Judge Coleridge, children need both parents, and so here's for children seeing both parents 50-50, the way forward for the children. A simple message, but if I may say so, a complex point. I have also noticed in American orders, which we come across quite a lot in the courts these days, they too are often supporters of the 50-50 arrangement. But is it really good for or fair on children to have two homes where they literally divide their time? Which one is really home? Where is their main base? Moving every week or in the middle of each week is the way it is often achieved. Sometimes that can involve extra travelling to and from school. It certainly involves a constant change of domestic culture. If a new stepfather or mother or stepchild are part of the package, that too demands the children to adjust to the different regimes and relationships constantly. The question, is such an arrangement the best one for ensuring children retain their sense of security when faced by the pain of parental separation? Would we be prepared to be subject to endless changes of domestic scenery, week in and week out? How unsettling would we find it? How unsettling do they find it, along with all the other adjustments they are called upon to make at this traumatic time in their life? These arrangements, of course, are frequently fashioned by parents who do not trouble the courts at all. In other words, they've sorted their disputes out themselves. As I say, this is often part of the big division on separation or divorce. But do the courts need to be on the lookout more before endorsing such plans, as always in the child's best interest? The Court of Appeal, in a series of recent judgments, has emphasised the changing climate towards the more frequent use of the shared residence order in appropriate cases. If those judgments are about emphasising the need to share equal responsibility for children and their upbringing, that must be right. But if the unspoken message is that should more often than not mean sharing time equally or more or less equally, is it the right message to send out? Are they by implication endorsing the 50-50 solution as the best model if it can be achieved? In the olden days when I started at the bar, old and wise county court judges, as they were then called, used often to say in response to pleas by young enthusiastic advocates like me, pleading for more time for estranged fathers, but Mr. Coleridge, the child has to know where to hang up his football boots in the summer. The implication was that the child has to have one solid base from where he visits the other parent. Now that approach now sounds old-fashioned, but was it in fact wrong in principle? We have of course moved a long way away from that approach. But is it a move driven by solid child considerations or just fashion, driven by the scale of the problem and the need to promote agreement at all costs because the courts simply cannot handle any more cases? Some of you may remember the story of Solomon in the Bible, who had to decide as between two women who was the true mother. He resolved the issue by asking for a sword to be brought so the child could be cut in half. That immediately drew the response from the true mother that she would rather cede the child to the other woman than risk such a judgment. Are parents too often trying to divide their children in half? Should they be helped and better educated to see the situation strictly from their children's point of view and so make concessions, even if it is more painful for them as individuals? But I come full circle. Is any arrangement, even if not really child-centred, the best one if it achieves agreement and removes conflict? In other words, should agreement at all costs, however unsatisfactory, be the main driver? And finally, the long-term emotional harm done to children by separating parents, warring over contact, is now so well understood and accepted. It has yet to be taken seriously by any government. The courts are bursting at the seams with the volumes of these cases. CAFCAS, the state agency charged with trying to assist parents and the courts to resolve these disputes, does wonderful work, but is at present quite simply overwhelmed